My name is D.V. Sridharan and I'm 77 years old. I live in Chennai. I was recently in New Delhi, that is on the September 22nd, to attend a gathering of Hindus from across the country. They were of various ages, men and women, from various professions and sampradayas and vocations. We gathered there to take a call on the Hindu way of life in India today. What are the difficulties faced by Hindus in post-independent India since we adopted our constitution in 1950? And we listed about 8 demands that we thought that we'll put in the public place for everyone to see, including political parties. And we expect wide-ranging support from various Hindus who share these concerns, which is one of the reasons why I'm addressing you. Now, I'll go over the demands briefly and explain them as I go. The first demand by consensus is the following: granting equal rights to Hindus by amendment of Articles 26 to 30 of the Constitution to remove the constitutionally sanctioned discrimination against Hindus and bring in religious neutrality in affairs of the state. The first demand simply means that the Articles 26 to 30 of the Constitution that were created to ensure that minorities are not ignored in the new India has ended up discriminating against the majority of Hindus. This is due to several reasons. Among them, Hindus' own apathy. They are not aware of this flaw in the articles, and they have never demanded their correction. There's also been the tendency across all political parties to seek the minority votes and ignore the Hindu aspirations and grievances, taking them for granted. There's also been the judicial activism and aided by the NGOs' mischief. All this has congealed into a huge discrimination against Hindus. Now, let me give you a few examples in the areas of running our own educational institutions, in governing our own places of worship, in reviving our own arts, in claiming what we are entitled to by way of scholarships and privileges from the government. We are legally or pseudo-legally being discriminated against. Now, there's an easy way to correct this. Dr. Satyapal Singh, who is currently a minister in the Modi government, when he was a private member, tabled a bill addressing precisely this lacuna in our constitution. Now, all we demand is that it be picked up again, brought forward, and passed into law so that there is a level playing field for everybody in India. The second demand is this: enact a Foreign Contributions Prohibitions Act by repealing the Foreign Contributions Regulation Act 2010 to completely ban foreign contributions except those by OCIs in their personal capacity. Are you aware that thousands and thousands of crores of rupees come into India every year through NGOs that number in the thousands? What purposes are they being used for? It is mostly used against the Hindu religion itself. Now, it is also used by the NGOs to affect policy, influence policy. It constitutes a huge national threat to India. It's an internal security matter. This has to be amended. Let me also tell you something from my experience. No self-respecting country in the world which aspires to be a superpower one day will allow this kind of foreign funds inflow into its society. If we are a proud nation, it's time we realize that we are not so poor as to have to seek these funds from abroad. It's time we did away with it. Just allow people of Indian origin from overseas to send the money in for the causes they like, and India will be a vastly better and a safer place for it. Demand 3. Enact the freedom of religion, protection of native cultural and religious traditions, and Prohibition of Institutionalized Religious Conversion Activity Act by the central government. Our constitution enables every Indian to practice and propagate the religion of his choice. But that does not mean that bodies can mount institutionalized conversion operations, as is happening across the country today. The enactment of this law that we demand will prevent that. Now, the other purpose of this law is to prevent the judiciary from interfering with native religious practices and cultural traditions. There cannot be micromanaging how religions are to be run and how practices are to be conducted. Just the other day, the Sabarimala judgment came from the highest court of the country. 4 gentlemen on the bench passed a law as to how to manage the temple entry, which cannot be the purview of the state. Now, it is to prevent such situations that we want this law to be enacted. Demand number 4, abrogation of Article 370 and tripartite division of J&K into states and union territories of Kashmir, Ladakh and Jammu. All political parties of India, and we citizens as well, have gone to sleep on what's going on in Kashmir. It's a tinderbox. The Article 370 has to be abrogated immediately if you are to salvage the state and also ensure India's sovereignty. The Article 370 was meant to be a limited period special status for the state to ease into integration. But it has stayed on as an unwanted guest. It's now becoming a mischievous article. It's a mischievous guest. A further demand is that the state be trifurcated into Jammu, Kashmir and Ladakh. This for 2 reasons. One, the discrimination against Hindus in Jammu and against Buddhists in Ladakh will end with trifurcation. And also the fund and revenue flows into the state will be more equitably distributed and enjoyed and availed across the whole state. Demand 5, amend Constitution to insert an enabling Article 11A for expeditious grant of citizenship to persecuted adherents of Indian origin religions, Hindus, Buddhists, Jains and Sikhs from any country. Let's face it, India is a natural home of people who practice religions of Indic origin, and they are now residing all across the world. Should they be persecuted anywhere or forcibly driven out of their country for any particular reason, they naturally seek refuge in India. This demand of the Hindu Charter asks the government to expeditiously consider their citizenship and grant them continued stay with equal rights with the rest of Indians. Demand 6, complete ban on export of all types of meat, beef, and enactment of the Agricultural Cattle Preservation Act. This demand in the Hindu Charter addresses mostly the environmental issue behind meat and beef export. The amount of water and the fodder and the agricultural land use that this industry encourages is enormous. It also prevents cruel transportation of cattle smuggling, and various social issues that are complicating our society. We demand a total ban on export, repeat, only export of beef and meat. Demand 7, establishment of Haindava Samskriti Jeeronodharana Nigam, Hindu Culture Restoration Corporation, as a central PSU with an initial seed capital of not less than rupees 10,000 crores and an annual grant of equal amount. Tell me, have you not been saddened by the neglect and abuse of our architectural marvels and places of worship? Should we not be reviving that? This particular demand addresses that need. We call for the establishment of a corporation with a corpus of rupees 10,000 crores and a like amount recurring annually to restore our places of historical interest and temples to old glory, and also to revive places of learning and centers of culture and art. Demand 8, create equal opportunity for all Indian languages in all areas of endeavor. All Indian languages are treasure houses of culture, history, arts, poetry. They all have suffered neglect because the primacy of English, which is required. in our transactional world. Let that continue. The Hindu Charter demands the government's activist endeavor in reviving all Indian languages and raising their visibility and widespread practice so that their esteem may be felt all over again. So, there are the demands laid out in the Hindu Charter that was finalized on September 22nd in New Delhi. I hope you are persuaded to believe that these need to be urgently addressed. Especially at this juncture, let us recall the Sabarimala judgment again. It is a huge intervention in the Hindu practices. I want to emphasize, we are not claiming primacy or priority over others. We are just seeking parity. Is that not fair? Go over to hinducharter.org and sign the petition. Add your name and add to the numbers so that we can present to the political class and take it to the public and tell them how the Hindus feel. And tell them not to take us for granted. We have genuine grievances that need to be addressed. So, go there at once and tell your friends to sign as well. Namaskar.